Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Silver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. And we are live. Yeah, it's true. I haven't been live for a while, and I was massively motivated over the weekend and of the occurrences of the last week to get on here live with you and chat with you. For those of you that haven't seen the show in the past, we haven't been on the air for about a year, and we're about to relaunch permanently coming up real soon, 2 hours a day, just like the promo in the beginning of the video said. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. till noon Pacific time. Well, of course, right now it's not in that time frame, so we're just jumping in. I just wanted to have a conversation, and we're going to be opening up the phone lines. We're going to let you chat with me right now because I believe there's a lot of people that really need to have somebody to talk to and somebody that might have a level head. Clearly, Charlie Kirk is on many people's minds. And by the way, Sterling, if you could just run on the bottom of the screen the way that people can connect with us here on the show. Charlie Kirk, of course, was assassinated last week, and that in and of itself was a shocker to everybody. And I don't even think that was the major shocker. There's violence in the world, and we are all dealing with a lot of extremism these days, and I'm going to get to that in this conversation in a moment. We're dealing with extremism. The shocking part wasn't him getting assassinated. As much as it's not fun for me to say that that's not shocking anymore, that people being violent, that radical people from the left, clearly from the left, being violent is not something that shocks us anymore because, frankly, it's way too rampant. Here's what shocked me, and I'm sure it's what shocked you as well. The response of some people to the assassination, to the murder of another human being is what shocked many of us, especially me for sure. And again, I just don't get it. Although as a hypnotist, I might have a greater understanding than most people. Again, if you want to chat, if you want to get on the show, it's scrolling across the bottom. Visit the link. The link's also in the chat. If you want to click the link in the chat, Sterling's putting the link in the chat. You can click the link, get into the green room, and I'd love to talk to you and find out what's on your mind about so many things. First and foremost, though, the fact is, hard times reveal people. They do. Good times don't. I call good times fat and happy. Good times don't reveal people. Bad times do. Hard times do. If you want to know how somebody really is, watch them in the dark, because how they are in the dark is how they're hiding in the light. And so, with the death of Charlie Kirk, I have to acknowledge I have a connection to Charlie Kirk. And it's a subtle one. I really didn't follow Charlie Kirk much. Years and years ago, I started seeing Turning Point USA popping up online. And for those of you that know me, I have been doing an event called Turning Point since 1985, so about 40 years. And when Turning Point USA popped up online, I did some research to find out who was using my brand name and saw what the organization was all about. Highly conservative, deep love of God, and in due respect, I thought massively respectful, still do. So when I saw who was using the name, although I could have had some claim to the name, with prior use and the fact that we had established it to millions of people over an extended period of time, I decided not to impress or force my trademark on anybody. So let it go. At any rate, didn't really pay a lot of attention to Charlie Kirk or the movement, would come across him on social media every once in a while. Not much of what he said did I disagree with, if anything. Those of you that also know me know that I have a deep love for God and an almost disdain for organized religion. And the disdain I have for organized religion is the hypnosis element of organized religion, of having anything fit into a particular box. That said, I still don't have anything against anybody who has a particular faith, whether it's Buddhist or Christian or Mormon. I don't have anything against anybody that has a specific faith, as long as that faith's doctrine doesn't mean that you must kill people that don't hold your beliefs. And there are some religions, some very well-known faiths, that actually in their doctrine says either convert somebody, or if they refuse to convert, you kill them, you enslave them, you rape them, you kill them. And that's what I'm against. I am also against any radical ideology that would have anybody believe that, other than arguing, other than verbal discord, that there's any other solution to someone disagreeing with someone else. So that said, I do realize that we've come to a point, and truly a turning point. And the reason I selected the name Turning Point for my seminar was, I know that in order for you to change your life, you don't have to change everything. One small better choice will change everything over time. And a series of small choices over time will ultimately change everything in your life. If you start having healthier relationships, you start making better choices for your relationship, you will have more joy, which will make it easier for you to make money. If you make more money, you make some small choices on making more money in your life, it will impact your health. It will impact your relationships. It will impact everything about your life. So I'm all for small choices. That said, I have consumed a lot of Charlie Kirk material over the last few days, over the last week or so, last 5 days. And I was blown away. I was actually in tears at some point. And part of the tears were embarrassment. Part of the tears were being convicted. And what I was being convicted about was the fact that while I do hold many of the same beliefs that Charlie Kirk held, I also realize that whether it's my advanced years or whether it's my having children, for sure measures into it, but the idea that Charlie was able to have conversations with people that he diametrically opposed, held completely opposite opinions and positions on, without having to dehumanize them. And I admit it. I am guilty. And I'm the first person to admit this, that sometimes I see people say things online on social media that get me so infuriated because they're just so flat out evil. They're so mean. They're so thoughtless that I have a hard time. Yeah, I can see we got a couple people calling in, and we'll get to your calls in a moment because I definitely want to talk to you. But that's the reason that if you go onto my social media, you will see me with no patience whatsoever for morons, with people that are attempting to find some justification for their behaviors. And I haven't been patient. I admit it. The reason I wanted to get on this show is I want to force myself to have better conversations with people, to have conversations that even when I'm diametrically opposed to somebody, when I think they're absolute morons, that I don't tell them I think they're absolute morons without at least hearing them out. At that very least, listening to the reason they hold the opinions that they hold. You know, I've been thinking about all that happened last week, and obviously we had two major public tragedies. This poor young woman from the Ukraine that's sitting on a bus minding her own business that gets her throat slit by a seasoned, hardcore criminal that was repeatedly released back to the general public to commit more of those heinous crimes. And then a couple days later, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. And I don't know if you've seen the footage of the assassination. I accidentally watched it. And I say accidentally because after I watched it, I haven't been able to get the image out of my mind. I watched the video. I have a sister of mine that manages one of my properties. And I said, "Did you hear that Charlie Kirk got shot?" She said, "Yes, we're praying for a recovery." And I said without thinking, I said, "The video that I saw, nobody's recovering from that." The video that I saw, his neck exploded and his major artery exploded. There's no way that anybody survives that. And unfortunately, I was right. I I saw, though, in the aftermath of that, just things that are unexplainable to me. I saw people that were cheering the murder of another man. Now, if you know me, you know I have no love lost for Obama. I believe Obama destroyed this country. I believe he set race relations back decades. I believe that he continues to fool around inside of our government. And I have no love for Obama. I have no love for Biden. I think Obama was nothing more than a puppet by the time he got into the White House. I don't think that he was inherently evil himself. I just think he had no ethics or morals. Those are my opinions. I'm entitled to my opinions. You're entitled to yours. Although I have no love lost for Obama or Biden, if somebody told me today that one of them was assassinated, I most certainly wouldn't cheer about it. I wouldn't have that in my spirit, number one, nor would I be such a lowlife as to go on social media and say anything that said I was pleased, because I wouldn't be pleased if another human being is murdered or killed in cold blood. I wouldn't have any joy in that. And anybody that has any joy in anybody, I don't care if it's Jeffrey Dahmer, if you have joy in your heart about somebody else dying, it says everything about you and nothing about them. And I think that's the challenge that we've gotten to. Now, beyond that, I'm a father. And as things unfolded, and I'm looking forward to taking your calls. And please, if you want to get on the air and have an open conversation with me, I want to have an open conversation with you. But when I saw the circumstances unfolding, and I'm still not sure that any of us know what the real circumstances are yet, there's still some very profound unanswered questions about the whole ordeal, the whole, all the occurrences that just don't fit up. They don't line up yet. They don't fit. They don't make any sense yet. And we'll get to that. But when I saw what was going on, and it was presented that the killer was a 22-year-old kid from a family in Utah, father law enforcement plus military, 27 plus years, mom and dad married, staunch Republican right wingers. When all of it started coming out that this was the kid that did it, the first thing I said is there's no way this kid was a staunch Republican. Not possible. And the reason it's not possible is that staunch Republican, I don't care how far right you are, you're not killing Charlie Kirk. So there was no way that the person that killed Charlie Kirk or the people that killed Charlie Kirk were far right. Not that it matters. I don't care whose team this person was on. The part that was especially impactful to me being a father was the fact that the father had to turn him in. Now, there's a lot of people chatting about the idea that there was a $100,000 reward for somebody turning the killer in, and some people are saying, "Oh, the dad just wanted the reward." I don't buy that. I don't believe that for a second. You would have to hate somebody to turn them in. Somebody even asked me if it was one of your kids that had committed this crime, and you knew that they had committed the crime, that they had confessed to you and said, "I did this." Yes, the right thing to do, absolutely, 100% would be to turn them in. And I don't know that I would have had the strength. I don't know that I would have the strength. I don't know that I wouldn't grab my cash and hire a jet and go to some place that we couldn't be extradited from to protect this person that I love, no matter how much I didn't understand them. I don't know that I would have the fortitude to do that. And so the idea that this father had to make that decision, wow, how hard. Yes, my prayers are with Charlie Kirk's family, with Erica and the kids, 100%. That loss, the day that he got assassinated, that night I got on my knees and I was praying for her comfort and the kids' comfort, because all I could think about was, what if I went away suddenly? And anyway, murdered or natural causes or accidental causes, what a tremendous emotional, spiritual blow to the family. Then I also, though, thought about the killer's family, the father and the mother and the siblings. Their lives are ruined. They will forever have that tainted reputation on them forever. It's not going away. And so there's got to be a level of empathy. Now, I also want to say that I've watched a whole lot of Charlie Kirk videos, and I watched some of the videos that people are sourcing for comments that they found repulsive about what Charlie Kirk was talking about. And one of them was that thing that he said, I don't believe in empathy. And anybody that says he didn't believe in empathy is taking it out of context. And the context that he said it in was, I don't believe you can have empathy. I don't believe you can actually know what someone else is feeling. And I think that was the core of what Charlie Kirk was teaching, is that, no, I can't possibly understand how you can hold this diametrically opposing view that I'm holding from my understanding. And I would agree. None of us can. The other day, I was talking to somebody, and he's a friend of mine, and he's black. And he said, Marshall, you can never understand what it's like to grow up in my skin. And when he said that, I looked at him and I said, do you really believe that? He said, yes. I said, so you really believe, because you're black and I'm white, I could never know what it was like to grow up in your skin? He said, absolutely not. I said, okay, well, if you believe that, then you have to also agree you couldn't possibly know what it was like to grow up in my skin. And he said, yeah, but you're white. You have white privilege. I said, there's that thing again. If there's white privilege, I'm sorry, I missed it. Because all I know is that as a white male on top of that, not just white, a male on top of that, there's no group of people right now in the current geopolitics of the world that are more judged and more hated and more acted upon than white males right now. And that's not a racist request from me, but I know that there's no white entertainment television. And if I launch a white entertainment television network today, most of the world will scream that I'm a racist. There's no white celebration month. There's no white pride month. If I launch a white pride month, people would assume I was racist for pointing out that, oh, you're white. You're just trying to prove that you're special because you're white. Then we started, he and my friend, by the way, we can have these conversations. So he wasn't offended by me having that opinion. We have those conversations. And I said to my friend, I said, here's the challenge with you, my black friend, suggesting that there's such a thing as white privilege. First and foremost, I believe that white privilege, the concept of white privilege, was invented by white people that seek to control not just black people and anybody that's not white, also to control white people. And my buddy said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, the notion that white privilege is a real thing gives anybody that's not white an excuse for not succeeding. It gives them some hook they can hang their hat on that says, your white privilege makes your life easier than mine. And then as we started talking about DEI, I asked my buddy, I said, do you want to get hired because you're black? I said, do you think do you think it's appropriate that you get favor? Because I understand equality. I agree with that. But do you think that you should get favor because you're not white because of DEI? Do you think that you should get hired for a job that is predominantly a white male job because you're not a white male? And he said, of course not. I said, but you support DEI. I don't understand. He said, because there aren't enough people being hired that aren't in that class of people, those white males. And I said, I get it. I understand. Could it be? Is it possible anywhere in this equation that the reason those people didn't get hired isn't because they're not the most competent? Is it possible they didn't get hired not because they're not white, but because they're not competent? That's it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I believe Martin Luther King when he said, judge people not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. Yes. If I'm an employer and I'm a racist and I don't hire people because of the color of their skin, I hire people because of the color of their skin, and I don't hire others because their color is different, it will eventually come back and haunt me. If I don't hire blacks or Hispanics or Asians because they're not white, and there are more talented people that are black or Hispanic or Asian, then eventually my business is going to suffer because I'm a flat out racist, as it should, as I would deserve to receive. But you see, that's not the case. The internet would have us believe absolute lies. And that's the challenge, is that gaslighting has become the number one weapon of the far left. And I would even say the not so far left Democratic Party. That the only position, the only platforms that the current Democratic Party stands on is we hate Trump and anything Trump stands for. You know that if Trump were to cure cancer tomorrow, there would be radical leftists screaming on social media, he just put all those doctors and cancer researchers out of work. What a horrible human being he is for curing cancer. And so part of the challenge that we all must address is this misinformation, hypnosis, purely hypnosis, that we're all experiencing right now, attempting to figure out what's right and what's wrong, what's up and what's down. After all of my viewing of Charlie Kirk's videos and watching a pretty substantial amount of his body of work, the one thing I admire most is that there would be times when people, whether they were trans or whether they were anything that Charlie Kirk might not have supported or agreed with, that he would repeatedly tell the hecklers, who were predominantly his fans, who are certainly far-right conservatives, he would tell his fans, stop heckling them, let them speak, let them have their word. I watched people that would walk up and physically assault Charlie, whack the cap off of his head or throw a drink in his lap, and he wouldn't get upset. He would remain calm. I wouldn't call myself a Christian today. And again, if I lose viewership, I don't care. I'd rather you knew who I was. And it's not that I'm not open to being a Christian. I am. I pray to God every day, just reveal the truth to me. I just want to know the truth. My truth, not your truth, not somebody else's truth. No matter what you say to me, I have to come to my truth. But I said to my family after Charlie Kirk's assassination and after all that I've been watching, I said, you know what? I'd like to be more like Charlie. I really would like to be more like Charlie. I'd like to be somebody who has patience, because that's absolutely what I know I have lacked in recent times, especially since my kids were born. Ironically, I'm more patient with them and less patient with the world. I'd like to be more patient. I'd like to listen better, like Charlie listened. I'd like to chat with people that have opposing views where we can both just chat calmly and decently without calling people names, without lashing out at each other, without saying any more than that's a fascinating point of view. I have no idea how you got to that place, except you're allowed to have that point of view because you're a human being. So I just wanted to do something informal today. I'm here at Studio Money, 31,000 square feet of studio space. We've got a big, beautiful theater where we hold live events, where we invite you to hold your live event. I'm up in Sterling Worldwide, which is my virtual studio. You can see we got a 24-foot LED wall behind me, 3 cameras set up, very cool. My amazing son, Sterling Marshall Silver, is sitting in the production booth right now, doing all the camera switching, bringing you on to chat with me. And I just want to talk. And I don't want to do a Charlie Kirk knockoff. That's not what this intention is. I like the format of talk shows. I've always done talk shows, and I want to get back to it because I would agree wholeheartedly that the number one thing that we have got to do, that we have to do, is we have to open up civil conversation. And if nothing else that Charlie Kirk demonstrated to us, that's what he demonstrated. We've got to open up civil conversation so that we are talking, even with opposing views. And while we don't have to agree with opposing views, we've got to hold them. John Matlin came on first, and I would like to chat with him. So, Sterling, go ahead and bring John Matlin to the stage. Hey, John, how are you?
Hello, Marshall. How are you?
I am always awesome. Where are you calling in from?
I'm visiting New York right now, so from Staten Island, New York, and somehow this visit I did not get pulled into any type of political activism, which usually happens when I come to my old stomping grounds. So for that, I'm happy.
It is great to hear from you. So what's on your mind right now? Obviously, it's been a rather traumatic week, lots going on. Obviously, I know you, and I know that you have had a history in politics, and you've seen the underbelly of it all. So what's your take on all this?
Yeah, I was talking to family about it yesterday, and one of the interesting things, seeing what just happened for most people, they could never fathom it. But having been in that front and center spot in such tension-ridden waters of New York City during the COVID mandates. I used to have people literally drive by me on the street while I was out door knocking, yelling at me, just get the shot. People would call my house, leave me voicemails in the middle of the night, hoping that I would die on a vent because I wouldn't take the shot. And they were happy I lost my job in healthcare. They would call and gloat about that. And I was somebody who always knew that when you get to a radicalization, it doesn't matter what side. I call it, Marshall, I call it the team jersey concept, where it's like, hey, I'm a New York Rangers fan and you're a Florida Panthers fan. And now I'm willing to shed blood because we don't root for the same athlete. And that was happening. And when you see that happen, I can't trust anybody. So you have to really, at that point, figure out who's on that radical side. So I started wearing a bulletproof vest at these events, and people thought I was crazy. Now, granted, ain't gonna protect your neck, right? Ain't gonna protect your head. But I understood what could come of these events when I was speaking in front of 3,000 people in the middle of Manhattan. Anything can happen. And it's just really sad because we actually watched that happen this week and in HD. And you've seen the posts. Human minds are not supposed to see that. That's not something you're supposed to consume.
I would agree. Yeah, and I mentioned to you when you had come through Turning Point that I have a student of mine, an inner circle member of mine, that ran for sheriff in Las Vegas. And this is a student of mine, highly successful, created a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, knows his stuff, extremely conservative, very respectful to everybody. I've never once seen him have a harsh word with anybody he interacted with, even with his own team when they were screwing things up. He was always just very level-headed. And he took 9 million of his own dollars from his own pocket and ran for sheriff in Las Vegas. And he said, Marshall, I had massive amounts of death threats on me, on my family. I had the most horrific things that people were saying about me and just everything about it. He said, I had no idea it was this corrupt. And my own personal belief for a long time has been that our government, for the most part, is nothing more than an organized crime entity, that it's become nothing more than a mafia family. And that's an insult to mafia families because the corruption inside of our government is so great. With the uncovering of USAID and all the money that's being funneled into NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and places that you and I might not support what those supposed nonprofits were doing and what they stand for, yet it was my own tax dollars going into all of that, just being funneled cryptically and underhandedly through all of these other entities just to get it into the hands of the Democratic Party and then by effect the far left. So, now we're seeing all of that's being eliminated. And in my own experience, when you corner a criminal, when you corner somebody that's got ill intentions and they don't have any way out, the only way they have out is to lash out.
Yeah.
The only way they have out is to fight their way out with violence. And so I think that the rhetoric and so many times I watch the left scream, oh, the right's, this or the right is that. The only answer to anybody that starts screaming, Trump is a rapist or, he's a pedophile or the right is violent and the right's doing all this. The only answer I ever give them is, could you please show me a video? And inevitably, without exception at this point, I've not seen any that didn't fit this frame. Without exception, they'll show a clip of something that was said completely out of context. If they showed the rest of the conversation before and after, it would have completely different meaning.
Yeah.
And,
And that's something that we have watched in this internet age. AI isn't helping it at all because of what we're seeing, the deep fakes and they're getting more realistic by the day. And the only way you can tell that they're fake is because they're so wildly off base. But it is concerning, and like you said, people have played the lash out because they can't process it. And when you can't process something, and when you are continually looking at logic and it gets you angry because you can't have an answer for your own stance, the next thing is it's a form, to me at least, of insanity. You're trying to figure out how you can support your stance, but you can't. And then the next thing is you revert to being a 2-year-old that lost, the playpen battle for the Lego set, and you start swinging or becoming violent. And I watched that happen. There was a whole thing here with the illegal immigration shelters in 2023, and I watched how this rhetoric, Antifa showed up in front of Gracie Mansion, the mayor's house in New York City, and we were going there just to hold a peaceful protest. Antifa showed up, and then there was a brawl across the entire street. There was cops everywhere. People hitting each other with flags. They're burning the U.S. flag, and I'm trying to keep everybody calm that wanted to enter the the brawl, if you will. And I said, do not do this. I said, this is, they want to end the event, and this is how they're going to do it, by way of violence. It's it's a very sad thing that we're watching this repeat, and it's getting worse, and that's because everybody is void of logic. And that is where Charlie Kirk's patience came in. And I said what Charlie had, because like you, I never watched a ton of Charlie's clips. I watched what was going viral at the time. And what I've noticed is he has a hat trick of attributes. He was not only very smart, he was not only able to debate, he was able to stay calm during it. Like, he was able to put together the whole package and have that conversation. And for me, where I don't have all that data pre-saved in my head like he does, I'm patient. I am so patient, and I've been doing the Charlie Kirk thing in the comments section or live at events, and I've been doing it, and it's just I've watched how the visceral response of the far left is to get violent. I've almost been attacked a few times. It's never happened, thank God. But I've talked calmly to them. I said, "Why are you here in this space, this angry, when all we're doing is having a conversation? How have I insulted you?" And it gets them even more angry. That's the problem.
Well, it's because they don't know why they're angry. And so, I was chatting actually with my wife, and we said the same thing. I said, I admire Charlie Kirk. And Erica brought up the concept. She said, that guy's just brilliant. I said, yes, I've never seen anybody that knew the Bible better than a Bible scholar. And I've never known anybody that appeared to know their politics better than Charlie knew the law and politics. And that was, when I watched the videos that I've watched, that's the thing, is he just keeps coming back to logic. And ultimately, the far left has gone so far left that's why we've seen this massive amount of people moving from the Democratic Party either to independence or even all the way over to the Republican Party, which, by the way, and I'm sure you agree with this, there's no parties anymore. There's just politics as usual. And the Republican Democratic divide is nonsense. It's not real. But what is real is people's opinion. And I just watched a video the other day of a woman that was carrying on and on. She said, every time I see somebody holding an American flag, I know exactly what they stand for. They're against LGBT and they're against this. And I'm going, why in the world would you think somebody that was proud of their country would be against all those other things? It doesn't make sense. They could be, and they could not be. They could just love their country too. But I'll tell you something else that I've seen recently in a lot of ways is I've seen a lot of gay people coming out against the mental illness of transgenderism. And I've seen a lot of people say, look, we just want to love who we want to love. You don't have to think anything. And I would agree with all of that I have tons of gay and lesbian friends. I got no judgment. In fact, my judgment is real simple. If you find love once in your lifetime, God bless you. Well, I might not choose that lifestyle or those preferences. I'm glad that you find joy, and I'm glad that you're happy. I have two inner circle members. They're women. They're married to each other. They're in love with each other. And I asked the one, I said, "Are you a lesbian?" And she said, "No, I'm a Christian." And I knew what she meant because her spouse's name is Christy. She said, "No, if Christy was a man, I'd be in love with a man. I just happen to be in love with this soul." That I get. I understand that, and 100% support that in every way.
Yeah.
What I don't support is people making me or even asking me to step into their neuroses, to step into what I consider their mental illness. I can dress in a dress. I can change my name. I can do anything I want to do. It doesn't change facts that I'm still a man. And I think that that's the challenge. And I believe that that's the gift of Charlie Kirk's life and death, is that I believe these kinds of conversations that we conservatives weren't having before, that we were afraid to even say transgenderism is a mental illness. DEI is in and of itself racist, that we weren't able to say these things. And I believe that Charlie's passing has made many people realize that we are the majority, that it's the minority that are these evil, grave stomping psychopaths that have no love for themselves, let alone for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the truth that we're going to start experiencing right now, is more and more people are going to say, you can have your opinion. I'm not required to hold it. And just because I don't hold your opinion is no license to attack me anymore. We're done with that. And, and I've said to everybody that I've had a conversation with in the last 5 days, we do not attack violence with violence, yet we do not back down. That's the only distinction. We do not back down. Charlie
Yep.
Kirk was talking to Ben Shapiro, and I was watching an interview between the two of them, and they were talking about the idea that there are death threats upon people that speak their mind. There always will be. There always has been. There always will be, by the radical left. And that's what most people don't want to accept that are on the radical left, that, again, it's not about teams. It's about ideology. And if your ideology is one that would have you dance on the grave of a man assassinated at 31 with a loving wife and 2 kids, if that is your ideology, if your ideology is everybody that won't convert to your faith or your religion must be killed, jihaded, then your ideology is sick and twisted. And if that's your ideology, by effect, so are you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge, is most people are afraid to just speak the truth. I wish no harm upon anybody, but I also wish no support of anybody that would wish harm upon anybody else. That's the conversation we've got to start having.
Yeah, and you said something right in the beginning, that when people would have that discussion about the difference of LGBTQ plus IA, there's so many things that are added to it. I have a gay friend that I spoke to back in 2009 when they added the LGBT or the Q, and I said, I have a question. This is just me being, I'm asking questions here. And I said, how did the T get added to a movement that was about being gay, bisexual, lesbian? I didn't understand the connection. And he actually said to me, John, I don't understand the connection either, but I can't push back, because if our community pushes back, we're going to be called hateful bigots. And I said, but your community is being dissolved by adding and tacking on other movements to it. It sounds like if there was going to be a trans movement, it would have to be in itself its own type of movement, just by default. And he agreed with me.
Yep.
His gay friends all agreed with me. And we were just...
and all my gay friends, in fact, a gay buddy of mine this past week said, I miss the days where I could just be gay.
Yeah.
He said, I miss the days where the trans, he said, even the queer, he said, queer isn't gay. He said, gay is gay. Gay is I love my husband. He said, queer is a whole nother ideology and a whole group of people, a whole new way of thinking. He said, I miss the day when I could just be gay. And I understood what he said 100%, because it keeps stretching further. Now it's not just tolerant of people that love somebody else, which I'm 100% in support of. I'm in support of anybody that loves anybody else. But when it comes down to the idea that I've got to support somebody's neuroses, I've got to agree with them that I should call. If somebody says, you need to call me King George, or if I said, you need to call me King Marshall, I would assume anybody that was sane, especially my friends closest to me, would look at me and go, you're not King Marshall. I mean, if you want to change your name to King, you can change your name to King. I'll avoid saying your name, though, because I don't want to call you King.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're at a point where there is the idea of, if you're an adult, you can do whatever you want, but to make other people, like you said, act a specific way, believe a specific thing, that is outside of boundaries of what and which you can control. So that has always been my issue, where people say, John, you have a problem with trans people. No, I don't. If you're an adult and you want to be trans, by all means, it's not affecting my life. However, when you say, okay, now people are going to start using different bathrooms and all of that, and the risks that causes and the dangers that causes, it then will, why is everybody forced to live in this truth of yours? And now everyone has different truths, that's fine, but there's still the real world, there's still a reality, and you cannot force that upon people.
And that's the challenge. And that's the challenge that nobody wants to speak about. It's like Voldemort. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that the trans movement isn't about the trans movement. It's about everybody else being forced into the movement. And that's where I have resistance. That's clearly where you have resistance. And I think where everybody should have resistance is, I would agree with you. If my friend Robert wants to change his name to Sally and dress in a dress, Robert, you're allowed to do that. And I don't mind calling you Sally, because that's okay. But if you want to call me she or Mrs., I just can't get past your penis.
Yeah.
I just cannot get past the idea that you're not a woman, and that's a lie, and that would be me admitting that I was insane, or at least winking at you. And if I've got to say something with a wink, it's not true. I'm not going to say it at all. Doesn't make any sense. Nobody's life is better because of that.
Yeah.
Say, we got to. I see a bunch more people lining up, wanting to chat. I want to chat with some other people. I'm looking forward to seeing
Absolutely.
you soon. Excited to have you and your beautiful bride as a part of the Inner Circle family. You guys are awesome people. And we're going to go live every single day. I think we're going to go live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So we'll be chatting some more. Come on back and join us again. Take care, John.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I see Nanette's there, but I also don't see a camera. Nanette, if you have a camera, go ahead and turn your camera on. In the meantime, I'm going to talk to Jeff Poley. Jeff Poley, welcome home.
Hey, Marshall. Good afternoon.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm on the Dallas area, and I got familiar with you recently through Dreams Business Network. And thanks for all you do. I've got in on the front end of your broadcast today and was just happy to hear some very good thoughts about everything and just contemplating those actions this last week.
I see in the chat your daughter is in high school, and she was massively impacted by the assassination. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that she had followed him to that degree. But yeah, she was like crying. We had to like console her just because she had watched his debates, on the socials, right? And she had seen the compassion that he had for those of a different opinion. He would have the loudest voice of the crowd come up and just have a conversation, right? And more often than not, he did have, very much respect for those that came, and, would share compassion and the love of Christ with them. And it was I
beautiful.
think that's what people respected. And I hear what you're saying too, just about taking things out of context. And unfortunately, that sort of thing happens. And that's really, I think, why people have a bad opinion of him and others, not because of what he said, but what people said that he said.
For sure. So, coming back to that, because you have kids, and I was talking to my sons this morning, I said, I don't think it was his one semester in college that corrupted this poor guy. And I say poor guy because his life's over. If they don't execute him, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison at the very least. His life is over. And I said, I don't think it was the one semester in college that corrupted him. I think it's the internet. I think it's the daily barrage of content being thrown at him that people cannot decipher the truth anymore. They just don't know the truth. And our media outlets, Barack Obama, back in 2011, rescinded Smith-Mundt, if you know what Smith-Mundt is. Do you?
No.
So Smith-Mundt was the law that made it illegal for media to lie, to commit propaganda against U.S. citizens.
Okay.
We've always been allowed to commit propaganda against other citizens of other countries for military or sociological gains. But there was a law in the United States up until 2011 called Smith-Mundt. And Smith-Mundt said you cannot lie. In fact, if NBC or CBS or any of the news networks, if they put news onto the news that was then discovered false, it was a felony. It wasn't just a civil crime. It was a criminal crime. So all the news outlets would very carefully vet their stories and wouldn't dare dream of putting something on the air that wasn't 100% vetted, 100% true. Barack Obama knew that the only way that the way you can control everybody is through what you feed them. And what you feed them is largely what they experience and consume on media, both on big tech, mainstream media, and all social media platforms. And so when he removed the laws around Smith-Mundt, he gave the media outlets permission to lie. Trump and his administration has already, just over the weekend I saw, is considering rescinding the rescission. In other words, putting back those laws
Sure.
back in place
Sure.
under Charlie Kirk's name, calling it
Wow.
the Charlie Kirk law.
Wow.
And I wholeheartedly support that, because if nothing else, every last one of us, I don't care what position you hold, I don't care what side of the issues you fall on, every last one of us should prefer the truth over everything else. And so, when people are online right now and they're interacting with other people online that, say, well, they laughed when Paul Pelosi, got attacked by a guy with a hammer, this mega attacked him. I said, first and foremost, there's contradicting stories around that. Secondly, nobody died. Thirdly, I didn't laugh, and I didn't see a whole lot of my friends laughing. But more than that, there's conflicting stories. There's no conflict over whether or not Charlie Kirk got assassinated. There's no question on that. There's no gray area.
For sure.
And so I think what has to happen is, the whole concept of fact checking was baloney. It was BS. It wasn't true. It wasn't fact checking. It was controlling the narrative. It was making sure
Right.
that you called facts that supported your narrative and discarded anything that the opposition had as a part of their truth. We need to have things be the truth. And I think that that's what we've gotten away from, is the truth. And if we can't get back to the truth, the actual truth based on facts, then we're nowhere. We're worse off than we've ever been.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty plugged into, what's going on, and I wasn't familiar with that, this Smith months that you said, but it does make sense to reinstate that. There is a lot of alternative media right now, the podcasting, so I don't think that it would be there.
Well, I don't know that it wouldn't be, and again, it's got to be. You're right. Now we've got podcasts, and it's kind of a blurred line between what is mainstream media and what is not. Joe Rogan wouldn't really be considered mainstream media, yet Joe Rogan is the most watched broadcast in the world right now.
Right.
So does Joe have responsibility to vet the truth, that there's no misinformation on his podcast? Yes, he does. Many years ago, I was on a talk show with a woman talk show host, and she would do these surprise meetups. Your secret lover is what she called them. Secret people that had a secret crush on you, the secret crush. And she brings this guy out, and she's all excited. He's all excited. Somebody's got a secret crush on you. They fly him into New York City. They put him in the studio, and they said, your crush has been fantasizing about, being with you and cuddling with you and kissing you. And would you like to meet your secret crush? And the guy's all excited, and he's a typical Midwestern hick. And the secret crush comes out, and it's another man. And he jumps up and throws, his hands in the air and storms off the set. And the guy that had the secret crush on him sits down, and he's devastated. And nobody wins. The only one that won was the TV show host, who got ratings and attention on her show. Well, the guy that was the straight guy went home, tracked down the guy that had a crush on him, and killed him.
Really?
And if you do any research, I guess I'm dancing around the person's name. Jenny Jones was the woman's name. If you do any search on that, my belief is, if you're going to run that kind of content on your show, and there's that chance to psychologically damage people like that, you're responsible, Jenny. You're 100% responsible. It bumped her off the air because she was responsible. I've been on the Howard Stern show numerous times, and I used to have a lot of respect for Howard Stern. But as you can see, Stern's gone off the deep end and decided to be this nasty, hard left bigot. Right. There's no other word to describe it. And the biggest power tool of the far radical left is gaslighting, accusing everybody else of exactly what they're doing in real time. And so the fact of the matter is, even me, with what do we got right now, 10 viewers watching? Yes, I'm responsible for anything that comes out of my mouth. Anybody that would be impressionable by somebody that has my level of fortitude or personality or, engaging, charismatic presence. Anybody that would listen to me that would then go out and conduct bad acts or harm people, I'm partly responsible for that. Not completely. I wouldn't go that far. Jenny Jones didn't kill anybody. The shooter's father didn't kill anybody. Yet I'm responsible for my children. Once they're adults, I'm not responsible. Yet I'm responsible for my children, which is why, the hardest thing that he did, turning his son in, was the right thing to do.
Right.
100%.
For sure. Yeah, it's a lot of good things to think about. And I agree with what you said. Like Charlie Kirk he had so many positives as far as how he did it. But what I see maybe happening is that through thinking through this, that there'll be other people that'll kind of step into what some of the things that he was doing. And it won't be like one Charlie Kirk, but maybe a lot of other people getting out there and just having
millions.
those dialogues.
Maybe millions of Charlie Kirks, because that's the thing that I'm seeing right now is more and more people are wanting to have these open and honest dialogues. Obviously, you and I hold similar positions and have similar beliefs, so there's not going to be a lot. Charlie specifically invited people that didn't agree with him. His tagline wasn't, let me prove myself right. His challenge was, prove me wrong.
Right.
And to me, that's a completely different position. When I say I'm open to hearing what you have to say, and if I'm wrong, I'll acknowledge I'm wrong. I just need you to present it in such a way that it makes sense to me, because it doesn't make sense to me right now. That's what I would want. That's what I would like to see happening with everybody, is that, yes, we have a higher level of tolerance for other opinions, not for bad behaviors. And I think that's the distinction that we've got to make right now. Have tolerance for other people's opinions, not bad behavior. It's one thing for me to say, I really didn't support Charlie Kirk and I really wasn't a fan of his. That's enough. It's not appropriate for me to say, oh, I'm so glad he died, wish his wife would die too. Then his children could be raised by somebody that was, more in alignment with what I believe. That's just sick and twisted and evil.
Right. Well,
hey, great. Thanks for calling in, Jeff.
Thank you for all you're doing here. I appreciate it, Marshall. Have a good one.
And I guess I'll see you in about a week at Turning Point.
Yeah, I'm still trying to make that happen, but
don't try to make it happen. Your whole life depends on it. You get down here to Studio Money, and in 2.5 days, your whole world's going to change. I promise you. Bring your daughter, as a matter of fact. She'll love it. You take care.
Yeah, okay.
Bye now. I believe that the world is inherently good, and I think this is our challenge right now. Our challenge is, and I said this for a long time, I have my home's in Las Vegas. I have a second home in California. And in 2020, right before the 2020 election, there was a Trump parade, cars, just impromptu parade of cars in front of my beach house. The parade had all the people going by as they did, with their Trump banners on the back of their big old 4x4s and, their Trump bumper stickers on their car and their, mega hats on. The parade went by my house down here in Southern California, a predominantly, theoretically blue state. And in the 4 hours of that parade, it didn't stop. And in 4 hours, we had people that believed in Trump drive past. Biden wasn't getting 20 people to his event. Now, people on the left were saying, and the Democrats were saying, the reason he doesn't have more than 20 people is COVID is going on, and we don't want to have any of the. No, they had 20 circles on the ground, so they at least allowed for 20 people, and 5 people showed up. So that said everything to me. That's beside the point. The point of all this is that part of the challenge is we as conservatives, at least myself, I prefer not to create grief. If I can just shut my mouth and ignore somebody and walk away from it, that's always my first strategy. At the same time, though, I've said for a long time, I don't think we're the minority anymore. And I don't even think we're anywhere near the minority. I just think the minority, the Democrats and the far left, I think they're extremely loud and abusive, which is why we think there's more of them, because they just make more noise. And so I think what we're seeing right now, and certainly what social media can be, and what I want this show to be, and what I want this program to be, is it can be a place where people actually have honest communication, respectful interactions, where we have different opinions, yet we don't have to resort to name calling. We don't have to resort to screaming and yelling and saying the most vile of things. Not easy. Definitely not easy. Except I pray that we can find that place to have those discussions. Hey, if you'd like to have one of those discussions, I've got a couple open phone lines right now or video slots. I see Nanette is still there. Is Nanette still with me? Nanette doesn't have a camera, so maybe we're just having a conversation audibly. Nanette, are you there?
Hang on. I don't know if I'm here or not.
I can hear you. I cannot see you, so you can just bring my camera up, Marshall, Sterling. Sterling Marshall, that's you. Marshall, that's me. Nanette, you're hot on the air. What do you want to talk about?
I didn't know I was going to be asked to talk about anything. But the one thing that I thought was interesting this morning was watching a TV station, the news, and they shamed 5 football teams for not doing a tribute to Charlie. And I thought that was awful.
And what do you think was awful about that?
They're trying to guilt them and make them look bad because they didn't do a particular thing that they thought they should do. I agree. This poor guy got killed. That's awful. But that doesn't mean every professional football team or basketball, baseball, all the different factions of the world have to go up and say and have a memorial or a statement, just before their game. Again, it's the news shaming people for doing what they're doing.
Agreed. So my question to you, though, is what do you think about prayer in school? Thought I lost you for a second.
If they put a prayer from every religion in school, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. What do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance in school?
That is creating good citizens. That's what it's used for, to get kids to thinking in that direction. Gosh, when I got to high school, I stopped saying it, but because I understood what it was at that point. And I don't think it's a horrible thing, because we do need Americans to be proud of being in America. And apparently, I don't think there's a lot that are anymore.
I would agree. And do you think that part of the reason that people aren't proud to be Americans is they're not put in places where they can show the pride?
Possibly.
I mean, if kids, when I was a kid, and I don't know how old you are, and even if I looked at you, I might not know how old you were, but I'm not looking at you. When I was a kid and I was in school, every single day we started with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Same here.
And it was a reminder that we live in the United States. We're watching people now be offended that somebody has a United States flag up in the United States. And I just think that's fascinating. They'd be angry that the flag, they'd rather see a Palestinian flag or even a Israeli flag or a pride flag than the U.S. flag in the country that we're in, that it's their flag. And that doesn't make any sense to me. What do you think about that?
I think it's silly. If somebody wants to fly a flag outside their home, they've got the right to, whether you're an American or not. If you want to fly a gay flag, that's okay too. Just don't pick on your neighbors because you don't like what they're doing. People have lost that ability to be neutral to other people and go, oh, okay, that's your style. That's what you like to do. That's fine.
So this is a bit reaching then, and again, I would agree with you that people shouldn't be shamed into doing anything. And the not doing something is enough of a statement. So yes, some of the NFL teams and some professional sports teams, baseball teams and otherwise, have gave a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. I get that. Some did not. I think, just like what I was just talking about, that if somebody I don't care for, like a Barack Obama or a Joe Biden, were to be assassinated, well, I certainly wouldn't cry tears over their death. I certainly also wouldn't have any joy whatsoever. But me not having tears says a lot about me in my relationship to that person. It doesn't judge me as a person in every area. It just says, hey, I don't care enough to cry for the person that died, but I'm also not going to insult their death by rejoicing it. And at the same time, though, that's the fine line we're walking on, isn't it? That you found offense, that they found offense. So they found offense that Charlie Kirk didn't get his moments of silence at those games. You found offense that they found offense. So maybe the challenge is everybody finding offense.
That's a possibility. But if somebody's going to come up and shame me for not doing something that I don't think is appropriate or correct for me at this point in time, I do lose my neutrality at different times. And I don't think they should be using a news station that a lot of people listen to and believe in to push their agenda.
But now you're talking about democracy. Now you're talking about the idea that that particular station shouldn't use their news platform to shame anybody. But I had a woman, I was doing my radio show many years ago, where I was doing a talk show just like this. And it was the #1 rated show in Las Vegas. And I was on every night for 2 hours. And I had really good ratings. The general management of the radio station changed. So a new general manager came in, and he despised me. He chain smoked. And one day I made a comment to him. I said, I can hypnotize you to overcome that sickening habit. And he looked at me like I had hit him in the face with my fist because I called his chain smoking a sickening habit, which it was. And after that, I couldn't do anything right as far as he was concerned. One day I come into work, and there is a letter from a listener in the recording booth, in the radio station booth, to me. And the letter was addressed to the radio station about me, but he had given it to me, and it said, Dear 100 FM Las Vegas, Marshall Silver does a nightly radio show. I know he has lots of listeners, but I was wondering if he could talk less and just play more music. I would so much rather he just played more music and talked less, because sometimes he just rambles on and talks to these people. It was a talk show. That's what I was hired to do, was a talk show. But the general manager put the piece of paper in front of me just to try to get underneath my skin. So I took the letter that night and I read it on the air. And after I read it on the air, I got done reading it and I put the letter down and I said, ma'am, I don't know if you're listening to me right now, but if you are listening to me, I'd like to, as I do every single night I come on this show, give you some advice. And here's my advice. If you're listening in your car, then what I want you to do is to clench your hand into a fist and extend your index finger straight up. Now point that index finger at any one of the other buttons on your car stereo and just give it a little press, and you won't have to listen to me anymore at all. You can always come back and press it again at 9:01 when I'm off the air. But for now, what you should do, take charge of your own life, just press that button. Because ultimately, here's what I think, Nanette. I think we as consumers, we vote with our wallets. I think if you don't like that news station enough, if you think they're shaming those NFL teams, which I agree, that sounds like what that is, and I would agree on both parts. I would quit watching anybody that didn't have the respect to do that, because it's such a simple thing to do, and do respect a figure that was beloved by many. Number one. But if I really didn't agree with the stations shaming those NFL teams, you know what I would do? I just use my index finger and I'd press a different button, and I would never go back to that station again. I don't watch Robert De Niro movies anymore at all. I avoid them at all costs. I don't pay much attention to people like The Rock that have spewed extreme violent rhetoric recently. I just don't watch them. I don't consume them. I don't attack them. I don't tell everybody how much I hate them. I just say, look, I don't consume their content. I'm going to vote with my wallet. And ultimately, my vote with my wallet will end up being the truth. So I am so glad you are here. You are totally loved. And where are you calling in from, by the way, before I let you go?
Oceanside.
Well, you are close. You are very close.
Very close. Very close. And one thing I want to say, though, I guess part of it is because I used to watch the news where they actually reported news, where they didn't share their opinions and try to make things more dramatic than they actually are. I actually heard a news station the other day put background music into their reporting of a particular subject to add more drama to it.
Yep.
They're turning into a certainly not a sitcom, but a drama TV show. They're no longer
sensationalized news.
Yes, it is.
Well, thanks for calling in, and enjoy the weather. We got a beautiful day here in Southern California.
Well, we sure did.
Take care. Hey, it's been great chatting with you, and I'm really glad to be here. We're going to be here every single day at 10 a.m., and I will keep jumping on the air as long as there are people to talk to. So tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will be back. Until then, remember this truth. We're in this together, and we must take care of each other, because ultimately, after all of the rhetoric, after all of the nonsense, after all the hypnosis that mainstream media and big tech will try to force into our heads, all we've really got is each other. And the world's a small place. Be like Charlie. I mean that. Be like Charlie. Have patience for people with opposing views. I know I need to practice that 100%. I acknowledge that in my life. I also want you to remember that we don't always know what somebody else is going through. We don't always know what they're dealing with. Like I said, I am truly saddened, very saddened for Erica Kirk and their kids and anybody that was close to Charlie. I am deeply saddened for that entire family. I am also deeply saddened for the family of the killer and even the killer. I am deeply saddened that somebody got to a place where that behavior, for whatever reason, and I know there's lots of stuff that's being rumored and hinted about, that he was hired gun and that the CIA, their FBI is involved. I don't know. I don't know. And when I don't know something, that's what I say is I don't know. Regardless, I feel bad for that guy to have gone to that depths of evil inside his own soul to commit that act. I feel bad for his family, for his mother and his father and his siblings and anybody related to him that now will forever bear that scarlet letter. And I feel for anybody that's getting on the internet right now and rejoicing over anybody's death. Yes, your soul is infected. It's bad. It's not healthy right now. Let's not celebrate anybody's death. Let's figure out a way, even in our truths, to get back to a place of love, because there is no question love is not the answer to. I am Marshall Silver. You are totally loved. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, 10 a.m., same bat channel, same bat station. Thank you to my producer, Sterling Silver. He's amazing. And thank you to you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show coming up 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. I'm going to give you content, information, emotional, mental, physical.